This is Rudy Jones of PamelaStateBaseball.com, and welcome to That Was the Week That Was in South Carolina College Baseball for March 12th. You may notice I'll look down at my notes every now and then because I don't have a teleprompter. This is not even quite up to being a shoestring operation I'm having here. You also may notice I'm rocking a USC Salkehatchie hat. It was a gift from former Indians coach Bubba Dorman a few years back in appreciation for what I've been trying to do with this website since 2009. I'm wearing it today because it's Salkehatchie coach Jeremy LeBon-Joy's birthday. I figured he could use a little encouragement. The Indians are 1-22 and on an 18-game losing streak after losing a game to Florence Darlington Tech this afternoon. I'm not pulling against any team Salkehatchie is playing. I just hope the Indians get some positives soon. Many of the teams in the state adjusted their schedules away from this past Sunday because of weather concerns. That led to a whopping 50 games involving state teams to be played on Saturday, made for a busy day keeping up with things. It turns out they were wise to make those moves. Of the games that were scheduled to be played in state, only that first game of the Florence Darlington Tech and Salkehatchie doubleheader was able to be played. William and Mary and Charleston was played in Virginia, so the Cougars were able to get their game in on Sunday. Everyone else rained out. While it was disappointing that so many games got rained out or moved from Sunday, there were a couple of benefits for me. I could take a nap longer Sunday afternoon, longer nap. And most of the work I usually have to do on Sunday nights after I get home from church, I was able to do before going to church. So that was nice. I'll spend most of this update on weekend games, but let's look back at a couple of early week games first. On Monday, Davis Wright, Nate Callaway, and Larson Schultz combined for a 5-inning no-hitter as Spartanburg Methodist beat Columbia International's JV team 26-0. On Tuesday, Coastal Carolina handed number 2 Wake Forest its first loss of the season as Derek Bender hit 2 home runs. Wake Forest committed 7 errors and also had a pass ball, leading to 9 of Coastal's 13 runs being unearned. That's not a very number 2-like performance, but hey, it's baseball. Lots of strange things happen in baseball, as you can attest. Now, on to the weekend. If you need a lesson that perseverance pays off, look no further than Clemson's series opener against Georgia State. The Tigers had lost 2 of 3 against South Carolina last weekend, as all fans in the state know, and they played a couple of tough games in winning over East Tennessee State and Presbyterian midweek to sit at 7-6 as Georgia State came in. On Friday, the visiting Panthers had 4 consecutive 2-run innings, hitting 4 home runs in the process, and were up 8-2. Clemson was getting men on, but not having much luck getting them in. They had 13 runners left on base in the first 7 innings. In the 8th inning, down 8-2, the Tigers got a couple more runs, left another man on base. In the 9th inning, down 8-4, Clemson got a run in. They got the bases loaded. There were 2 outs. Cue Billy Amick. He came up and hit a home run just to the right of the hitter's backdrop in center field at Doug Kingsmore Stadium for a grand slam, a walk-off win, and a great celebration for the Tigers. It seemed to lift the Tigers up as they also went on to win the final 2 games of the series, scoring 10 runs each time. They are now sitting on a 5-game winning streak. A week ago, they were 5-6, and fans were grumbling. Perhaps if Ryan Ammons can come back from his injury issues and give the pitching staff another boost, the Tigers may be on the way to doing some great things. Of course, with the conference play starting this coming weekend, that's a good time. Seems like the only thing that can slow Wofford down is the weather. Sunday's series finale with Cincinnati was canceled, leaving the Terriers' winning streak at 14 games heading into a Tuesday visit to Georgia. Small ball and aggressive base running paid off for the Terriers in Saturday's game as they scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th and went on to win 5-2. That was their most recent outing. Speaking of Georgia, the Bulldogs found out that past performance is not necessarily an indicator of future results. They hammered Charleston Southern in Game 1 of a Saturday doubleheader, 15-0 in 7 innings. The Buccaneers were no hit until the 7th inning when Michael Gibson got a hit. Georgia closed it out as 15-0. In the second game, the Buccaneers got a quick 5-2 lead, held on 5-4, and wound up winning 5-4 to even that series and get a nice little, or to even that doubleheader, and have a nice little win. Charleston Southern used to pair a 2-1 wins over William and Mary to open Colonial Athletic Association play and push its winning streak to 10 games. Alas, all good things must end, and the Cougars were 1 hit on Sunday afternoon in losing Sunday's series finale. Still, 10 straight wins was 10 straight wins. That's good. They're now 10-4. Make it 11-4, South Carolina won 5 games last week to improve to 16-1. A 19-1 win over USC Upstate in Greenville on Wednesday was followed by a 20-3 7-inning win over Bethune-Cookman on Friday. Gamecocks starters Will Sanders and Noah Hall did okay, maybe not quite up to the level they would need for SEC games. The best start of the weekend was by Jack Mahoney, who struck out 9 in 6 innings. Carolina hit 3 grand slams against the Wildcats, giving them 5 this season. USC is at or near the top in home runs. They had 45 through Saturday. They were leading the nation. I don't know about all the scores from Sunday as far as home runs. The Citadel got its 3rd weekend sweep of the season, hitting double figures all 3 games in a series against Holy Cross. Now, if the Bulldogs can just start adding some midweek wins. USC Upstate snapped a 5-game losing streak and won 2 of 3 over James Madison with late rallies in the 2 wins. A 3-1 run ninth in Game 1 produced a walk-off win, and the Spartans had 3 runs in the 8th and held on in the 9th to take Game 3. Winthrop lost the rubber game of a series at East Tennessee State in tough fashion, losing on a walk-off wild pitch to fall to 8-8. Presbyterian's offense was held in check by Eastern Kentucky over the weekend as the Blue Hose went 0-3. PC only got 6 runs and 14 hits in the series, but the PC pitching was pretty good too. They only allowed 8 earned runs and struck out 23 in 22 innings. Most times that's going to be good enough to get you at least 1 win. Coastal Carolina followed up its midweek win over number 2 Wake Forest by splitting 2 games with Illinois before the final game was rained out. On to NCAA Division II. Defending national champion North Greenville got pushed by Erskine in a couple of games, but went on to a 3-game sweep and moved to 9-1 in Conference Carolinas play. They're 20-2 overall. Coach Landon Powell's team is on a 6-game winning streak, and that's without star player Marek Kalup, who is now playing for the Czech Republic in the World Baseball Classic. He drove in the first run for a Czech team in the World Baseball Classic Friday night. By the way, Charleston Southern's Daniel Patisok, hope I'm pronouncing his name right, also plays for the Czech Republic and had a good 4-inning start the other night. Back to Conference Carolinas. Francis Marion entered the weekend in 3rd place, but was swept by UNC Pembroke and has now fallen to 6th. The sweep by UNCP kept the Braves 1.5 games behind North Greenville. Southern Wesleyan won 2 of 3 at King to move up to 5th place, while Erskine's 3 losses dropped the Flying Fleet to 8th. USC Aiken remained the only team without a Peach Belt Conference loss, going 3-0 against Flagler to move to 9-0 overall. Aiken has won 8 straight games overall and is 17-5 overall. Columbus State, which plays host to the Pacers this coming weekend, is a half game behind. Lander went 1-2 in a non-conference series with Emmanuel and is in 7th place. USC Beaufort, which was swept by Georgia College, has lost its last 7 Peach Belt Conference games and is in 9th. Claflin lost 2 games to Augusta on Saturday. Game 3 has been moved to Monday because of rain and is winless in league play and overall. The Panthers are 0-16. Newberry's weekend sweep of Mars Hill gave the Wolves an 18-4 overall record and a 6-game winning streak. They're 1 game behind first place Lenore Ryan in the South Atlantic Conference. Anderson evened its sack record and overall records with the sweep of Coker, and they moved into 7th place in the conference. Limestone went 1-2 at Tusculum, winning the final game, and they're now tied for 8th place, while Coker is tied for 10th. Benedict only played 1 game last week, losing to St. Rose for his 4th straight setback. The scheduled Sunday opener of a Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference series with Edward Waters was rained out. Monday's doubleheader at Tiger Field in Columbia is scheduled to be live streamed under the HBCU League Pass app. I'm hopeful it will be because I'd love to have some baseball to watch at lunch. Columbia International went 1-2 in an Appalachian Athletic Conference home series with Union. In Friday's series opener, the Rams trailed 18-10 going to the bottom of the 9th, but scored 6 runs and had the bases loaded when the game ended. Voorhees lost 3 games in the spring HBCU tournament in Miami Gardens, Florida. I watched some of the action online and it looked like the Tigers had perfect weather for baseball. Morris went 0-1 last week, losing a midweek game to Columbia International. Bob Jones fell to 2-14 with 5 losses last week. The Bruins played a Tuesday doubleheader at Floor Field against Montreat and were swept, and they've got another trip to downtown Greenville this week against Columbia International. Rain played havoc with the opening weekend of the NJCAA Region 10 schedule, with only 9 of the 16 scheduled games able to be played. With 2 games scheduled on each day of region play, there is not much flexibility to adjust for weather concerns. Defending champion Florence Darlington Tech won all 3 games over USC Salkehatchie. Spartanburg Methodist went 2-0 at USC Union. Lewisburg, USC Lancaster, USC Sumter, and newcomer Gaston College all went 1-1. Lancaster's loss to Gaston in Game 2 on Saturday snapped a 10-game winning streak for the Lancers. Looking ahead, there are some good midweek matchups of conference teams, state teams, excuse me. College of Charleston is at Clemson on Tuesday. The Citadel is at USC Upstate, and Presbyterian is at South Carolina. In addition, Wofford risks its winning streak at Georgia. Also, Big South Conference favorite Campbell visits Coastal Carolina. On Wednesday, Newberry is at USC Aiken in a meeting of the teams ranked 2 and 3 behind North Greenville in the Palmetto State Baseball.com NCAA Division II rankings. Also, Duke arrives in the Upstate prior to a weekend series with Clemson and will meet Presbyterian at Ford Field in Greenville. Again, a shout out to the folks with the Greenville Drive for being so willing to share their facility with college and high school teams. They love to promote the game of baseball. They do many things to be good citizens in the community, even such things as providing the little covers for our, we used to call them pennies, for the school patrol folks at various area grammar schools, elementary schools. I'm old, used to do grammar school. Anyway, moving back to baseball. Conference play begins for many of the state's Division I teams this weekend. Clemson, as I mentioned, plays host to Duke in the ACC opener for Clemson. Duke went 1-2 in its first series at Wake Forest over the weekend. South Carolina is at Georgia in the SEC, and Coastal Carolina is at Sun Belt Conference newcomer James Madison. In the Big South, Charleston Southern is at home against UNC Asheville. Presbyterian is at High Point, and Winthrop is at defending champ Campbell. College of Charleston is at home against Stony Brook in its second CAA series. Non-conference series involving state teams include Kansas at the Citadel, Princeton at USC Upstate, and Wofford Xavier. Kansas and Michigan State probably ought to pay income tax in the state because they've been here quite a while, over a week for both of them. The top matchup in NCAA Division II may be USC Aiken's trip to Columbus State in the Peach Belt Conference. The Pacers and Cougars hold the top 2 spots in the standings. It only took one rain-shortened weekend of NJCAA play for the 6 of the 8 teams to come up with 1 or more losses. As I mentioned before, FT Tech is at 3-0, while Spartanburg Methodist is at 2-1. 4 teams, 2-0. I apologize, Spartanburg Methodist 2-0. 4 teams fall at 1-1, and then there's USC Union at 0-2 and USC Salkehatchie at 0-3. There are still 6 weeks of games remaining. That's 24 games for each team, weather permitting. I hope you've enjoyed this video update. I'm still experimenting with ways to get more fan interaction. Reaction helps me to gauge how much interest there is in what I'm doing at the PalmettoStateBaseball.com on all levels. If you're seeing this on YouTube.com, please go to PalmettoStateBaseball.com and check my page out. I try to do lots of things there to give out information about college baseball in South Carolina. I also do a weekly podcast. I'm active on Twitter at the handle Palmetto Base. Well, I think that's going to be it for this week's edition of That Was the Week That Was in college baseball in South Carolina. This is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com saying nothing could be finer than baseball in South Carolina.